Good morning everybody, and welcome back to This Week in Magic Online Finance. I'm trying something new this week, just doing an audio recording instead of trying to memorize my script and making myself look presentable in front of a camera. So I apologize for the lack of sideways glances and wild gestures and cat footage that you're all used to. That said, doing things this way will allow me to write and record a much more detailed show for you each and every week. So, there might be fewer jump cuts moving forward, but there's going to be more news, more cards, and much more detailed analysis, and I think that's a really good trade-off. At any rate, let's move on to the news. And the biggest story of this week is that we've just made it through our second Monday of Pioneer bannings. This time around, it was just one card that got the axe. Veil of Summer, the core set 2020 uncommon that's caused so much consternation among the standard player base over the past several months. As expected, Veil of Summer tanked hard once it got the axe in Pioneer, plunging 5 tickets from 6 all the way down to 1. In fact, Veil will probably be less than half a ticket by the time you all watch this video. You can pick up a few copies now if you want, because it's probably never going to get much cheaper than this, but Veil might be on the verge of getting banned in Standard too. It sees enough Modern play that it might end up being, worth a couple of tickets over the long haul, but there's just not that much money to be made here regardless. Speaking of bans, it seems awfully likely to me that several cards are going to be banned in Standard later today. Oko Thief of Crowns is going to be one of them, and it might be joined with partners in crime like Once Upon a Time, Nissa Who Shakes the World, and the aforementioned Veil of Summer. I personally feel like Wizards is going to take a nuke it from orbit approach to these Oko decks and, more cards than we think are going to get banned, because they aren't going to want to risk this deck adapting and sticking around. They want to send a clear message about whether or not people will still be able to play it in post-ban Standard, and honestly I think they want us to all forget about Oko Fall as soon as possible. Financially, these bans shouldn't affect MTGO prices all that much. Standard is one of the least important formats on MTGO, and the playability of these cards in Modern and Pioneer matter a whole lot more. That said, it's quite likely that whatever cards are banned in Standard do end up tanking a little bit, and you might be able to take advantage of that. This isn't like Pioneer, where a card is banned and you should probably sell it ASAP even at a loss. Instead, you should think about buying any of the cards that are banned in Standard if they do end up dropping in price. A card like Once Upon a Time, for example, is still going to be key in Pioneer and Modern, even if it's no longer allowed in Standard. So, this afternoon, once the Standard bans do go into effect, I would check the MTGO price charts and see what's happened to the banned card prices on Magic Online. If any of the cards that are relevant in older formats, like Once Upon a Time, do drop in price, I would look to buy in. Let's move on now to gaining ground, where in Pioneer it was Vivien Arcbow Ranger gaining 40 full tickets, from 26 all the way up to 66. This might be the biggest jump that any single card has had all year, and it's almost entirely due to a demand choke for the Star City Games Invitational. See, the SCG Invitational switched formats from Standard to Pioneer, so a ton of players needed to test for the new format real fast. And because WotC is banning cards in Pioneer every single Monday right now, contestants only had several days to puzzle out the new meta. Vivien Arcbow Ranger is key to the current build of Mono Green Devotion, but that's only been true for about a week now, so all the players who wanted to test Devotion for the Invitational had to buy Vivien's in a couple of day period, but whoops, nobody's drafted Core Set 2020 on MTGO, so there just aren't enough copies of Vivien to go around. Hence the surge to 66 tickets. Vivien might actually be higher than 66 by the time you watch this video, but I still expect the spike to be short-lived. For one thing, the Invitational is over now, and a bunch of people who bought copies of Vivien to test with can now sell them and move on. For another thing, WotC will likely ban another piece from this deck before too long. Pioneer still has a long way to go before it's ready for prime time, and Devotion is still a top deck despite having been hit with several bans already. If Nykthos or something isn't hit later today, it'll be something else, or it'll be soon. Regardless, I'd be really happy to cash in on this spike right now if I could. Also up in Pioneer this week are Kalitas, Trader of Get, and Sorin, Imperious Bloodlord. Kalitas is up about 14 tickets from 13 to 27, while Sorin jumped 9 more tickets from 21 up to 30. Now, neither black nor white have really found a footing at the top of the Pioneer metagame yet, but Kalitas is showing up on the mono-black aggro lists, while Sorin is still a stalwart in the mono-black vampire lists. Both decks stand to gain some further ground as the better blue, green, and red cards continue to be banned, so we might see further movement in this direction as the week goes on. That said, it's worth noting that Sorin's price chart appears to have peaked, so based on that, I'd give Kalitas better odds of continuing to rise. If you're gonna bet on one of these cards for spec purposes, that's the one I'd go with. Lastly, Brazen Borrower shot up 8 tickets this week and is currently sitting at a cool 25 tickets. Brazen Borrower appears rather stable at this price right now, though the card does see play in all the good Oko decks in Standard, and those are about to be banned into oblivion, so we'll see if that affects the price tag going forward. I suspect that the price increase this week has more to do with Brazen Borrower's play in Pioneer though, where the card is showing up as a sideboard option in decks like Is It Phoenix? I wouldn't be shocked if Brazen Borrower ends up continuing to seesaw around depending on the Standard and Pioneer bans over the next few months, but I really like the card long term. Brazen Borrower has proven itself across multiple formats at this point, and I think it'll continue to stay relevant going forward. Over in Modern, the card that gained the most ground this week was Force of Negation, which climbed about 10 tickets from 40 up to 50. I told you last week that it looked like this card had bottomed out and would start to rebound again soon, and lo and behold, here we are with Force of Negation once again on the rise. This card was as high as 85 tickets this fall, but I don't think it'll be gaining all that ground back in a single go. It's far more likely that this part of the rebound was due to folks needing copies for invitational testing, and the card will really only start to surge in price again once we get to a part of the Magic calendar where Modern is front and center. That's just probably not going to happen until January or February. 50 is still a totally reasonable price to pay for Force of Negation, but I just wouldn't expect it to pay any real financial dividends for a couple of months yet. Let's move on now to our biggest losers, where in Pioneer it was Nexus of Fate dropping 10 tickets from 48 down to 38. Part of this is just market correction, since Nexus is still a key deck in Pioneer, but I'd like to reiterate that this card is still a sell high. The chances that Nexus combo is both good in Pioneer and not banned in Pioneer just feel incredibly low to me. Either the card is going to be hated out of the top of the metagame, or it'll get banned. There's just not much reason to buy into this one anywhere near the current 40 ticket mark. Over in Modern, Mishra's Bauble is down about 4 tickets this week from 20 down to 16, giving back most of the ground it gained last week. I had thought that this might have been the precursor to the entire Modern index rebounding a little bit, but instead it seems to be just a blip on the radar. Between this and Jace the Mind Sculptor continuing to erode in price despite seeing play in quite a few really good Modern decks, it appears as though people are just still really sick of this format right now and still focused on Pioneer and Pioneer alone. This is yet another reason why I don't expect Force of Negation to end up back at 85 soon, nor would I be shocked if its rebound also ends up being kind of a blip. Modern will have its day again, and it will happen soon, but that day is not today. Unless WotC decides to ban something in Modern today in addition to Standard. That would cause some movement in the market. I honestly have no idea what that ban would even be, maybe Urza, but I definitely look into picking up Modern stuff ASAP if there is a Modern banning, because that would be one way to draw some attention back to the format. Otherwise, I'm still gonna stay away, and I'll probably buy in at some point over the holidays. This week's sneak is Dreadhorde Arcanist, which has quietly gained ground all the way back up to its previous all-time high of 18 tickets. These days it seems like Dreadhorde Arcanist is all over Modern and Pioneer, and I see no reason for that to change anytime soon. War of the Spark is out of the set redemption window too, so there aren't any external forces at play here. Mark my words, Dreadhorde Arcanist is going to be a 20 plus ticket card over the long term, and I don't think we're going to see it drop below the 15 ticket mark again this year. You can buy this one with confidence even at its all-time high. As always, we're going to end the week by taking a look at the MTGO Trader sales data over the past 7 days. And this gives us a great idea of which cards are buying and selling the best right now, regardless of price increases or decreases. Looking at overall sales by volume, it was yet another great week for uncommons that see a ton of play in Modern and Pioneer. Wild Slash was the best-selling card of the week again, followed by Fatal Push, and then, surprisingly enough, Veil of Summer. Even though Veil of Summer was just banned in Pioneer, I guess enough people decided to buy copies at the reduced price that it ended up being a top seller this week regardless. In terms of rares, Once Upon a Time, Smuggler's Copter, and Thoughtseize were the headliners this week. I don't really like buying either of the first two cards right now since they're both at risk of being banned, but Thoughtseize is still surging in price both in paper Magic and on MTGO. At some point the black decks are actually going to be good in Pioneer, and we'll see this card break the 40 ticket mark and head toward 50. If I were you, I'd grab some Thoughtseizes before that happens. In terms of overall sales by price, both Oko and Teferi dominated the week yet again. Unlike last week when both cards saw minor losses despite being great sellers, both of these formidable planeswalkers were pretty stable this week, with Teferi actually taking a strong upward trend over the weekend. Today's banned and restricted announcement is likely to shake up the prices even further, and I wouldn't be shocked if both cards end up even higher next week. Yes, even after Oko's inevitable standard ban. There might actually be folks out there who are waiting to buy in once the price is cheaper after the ban, only to find out that, whoops, everybody was kind of waiting for Oko to get cheaper, but standard doesn't really drive prices on MTGO. Regardless of what happens, people are still going to really want these cards going forward, and they're going to remain at the top of the market for the foreseeable future. And that's all I've got for you this week. Thank you so much for watching this video and for listening to my silly voice talk to you about Magic cards. I will see you again next Monday morning for another episode of This Week in Magic Online Finance.